and welcome back. I'm John Lincove.
I'm Maddie McCarty.
And I'm Mike Monticello.
And on this episode today, we're going to be talking about kind of a buzzy vehicle.
Good one.
The Volkswagen ID.Buzz minivan. We bought a 2025 ID.Buzz first edition 4Motion. So as you may or may not know, it's an electric vehicle. So it's the recreation of the old Volkswagen bus, but with the modern spin, electric powertrain. So this has a 91 kilowatt hour battery pack, dual electric motors. It's a pricey vehicle, isn't it?
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Pricier than you'd think.
Pricier, yeah, exactly.
I thought it would be.
Especially for like the people's car.
For a family vehicle.
Yeah.
When you think about microbus, the history of microbus, Vanagon, those kinds of things, those were for the people.
Yeah. And, and I mean, Volkswagen, we've seen, they've had higher line cars. The Phaeton, for example, that was like an ill-advised push into expensive vehicles.
It was a pretty good car, though.
It was.
Yeah.
Well, what defined good?
It drove well.
It drove well.
Yeah.
It didn't maintain well. I think.
And no one took it as a Volkswagen. If I can't.
Yeah.
A luxury, a Volkswagen this expensive.
Yeah.
No one really bought that. So literally didn't buy it.
Well, so this one's getting into that territory. So on top of the $69,995 MSRP, our ID.Buzz came with auto dimming rear view mirror with HomeLink for $405, a $350 240 volt / 120 volt mobile charging cable, which I found interesting that they're charging you for the mobile cable. I thought a lot of those were included in some of the EVs we bought.
Right.
Prepaid EV maintenance with a 30,000 mile service for $85, the cheapest maintenance plan ever, and a $42 first aid kit. So with the $1,550 destination charge, total price was $72,427. And right before I get to you guys, one no-charge option is the 3-year Electrify America Pass Plus membership. So it gives you reduced charging costs and 500 kilowatt hours of charge time included. So part of the Dieselgate, that Volkswagen diesel cheating scandal, they invested in Electrify America, so they're fully involved in EA's network of chargers. Yep. So that's why people are getting that. We did rent one from Volkswagen, and we have a first drive on consumerreports.org about that. But because this isn't popular, we're going to dive into the one that we bought. So let's get into it first, because we've each had experience with it, a little different, using it not in a test situation, but just using it as regular people. Maddie, can you go first and tell us about living with it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first off, I thought this was a very fun car to hop into. I loved the color scheme, and it just seemed like stepping into the past, but also the future at the same time. And so I did most of like my urban everyday stuff. So like I went to the grocery store, and as I was pulling in to charge it, someone stopped me and was like, "Oh my gosh, is that the new ID.Buzz?" And I was like, "Yeah, it is." And she's like, "How do you like it?" And I was like, I only started driving it today, but it's really fun to just drive around. You do feel like you're driving a bus. It is pretty big. Yeah, you're upright. But it just, for some reason, I feel like it's just, I'm happy when I'm inside it.
It's cheery.
Yeah. And there's tons of space, right? So I went grocery shopping, so there was no lack of space.
Yep.
And I also randomly took it to a concert. And so that was great to just pull up into the parking lot, and people kind of were looking and smiling. And so that was fun. But in terms of like the actual practicality of it, with it being an EV, not quite sure. It only has about 231 miles, I think, on it with full charge.
Yeah.
When I charged it a couple times, to full 100%, it was like 213 miles of range.
213.
Yeah. So I totally agree. Like it makes people smile.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the exact opposite effect that a Tesla Cybertruck has on people. You know what I mean? Like this. Yeah. I went mountain biking with it, and I pulled up to the trailhead, and there was a couple there that was just about to go out hiking, and they just stood there for a while and kind of stared at it and just smiled, and they just kind of waved to me, and then they took off. It just makes people happy. I think you're right. The two-tone color scheme looks so cool. I really always liked the style of the microbus especially, and I had such high anticipation. I actually never drove the rented version, so this was the first experience, and I had such high anticipation because it looked so cool. And I think the driving part is pretty good, but there's just some issues that you have to put up with that hopefully we'll get into, which is in terms of just getting in and out of the vehicle up front, and then the controls that are just kind of a real, ultimately kind of a letdown, you know?
Yeah, yes.
And the driving range. The driving range obviously is maybe the biggest letdown, because that really restricts what you can do with this road trip oriented vehicle, and yet you're going to have some compromises on a road trip.
It is true. I mean, like we said, it's you know, Maddie, you put some notes in it. It is EPA rated at 231. We're driving in the winter,
right?
It's going to be really reduced.
You know, so it's really going to be reduced. It'd be interesting to see if it's, you know, if it's underestimating what it really will be. I mean, because we've driven a number of BMWs, for example. I know different manufacturer, but like they've just overdone what their estimated range is. You know, you're just shocked that you can go so much further.
Yeah, you mean when we do our 70 mile per hour highway range test?
Exactly,
right?
exactly. So,
and which we will do with this.
And we will do this, right?
ID.Buzz
when it warms up. Yep. Yeah, it's the same way I drove it. Again, you know, we're doing this family thing. I've got kids, you know. My kids are very polarized on it. Apparently, in the show Outer Banks, I know it's like, let me tell you something, kids. It's called Twinkie. So my daughter was just like, oh my God, that's a Twinkie from Outer Banks. I hate this so much. My son, on the other hand, was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. It's so roomy. I can hang out here with my friends. I want you to drive us to camp in it. And that, to the range thing, is like, all right, it would be perfect. It would be a perfect vehicle really to take my kids to summer camp, because the four of us could fit. They're there for 7 weeks. We could fit all their stuff in the back of it. You do have to pull out the third row seat to really get the maximum cargo room, but it would be more maneuverable than the Jeep Grand Wagoneer, you know, Wagoneer that I've taken, or, you know, just a giant SUV. It would really work out, but it's 140 miles round trip. Okay. Summertime. All right. Maybe I got to run the AC. It's a lot of hills, and I'm carrying a lot of stuff. Like, will I run into range issues?
Right.
In theory, no. 140 miles shouldn't be an issue, but
once you actually start driving, and then even if you have like 30 miles left over projected or whatever, then it's still, you get that range anxiety
100%.
Of like, what if I don't make it?
Still real. You know, we've been talking about range anxiety for a while, and we haven't, some of the EVs lately, we haven't had to think about it as much because they're well over 300 miles of range.
Yep.
But when you get in a brand new vehicle like this, and it's only showing you 213 miles of predicted range, and when you start seeing that go down further and further as
and
you're driving.
how fast it's going
you're
down.
like, oh boy, well, I wish I'd taken another vehicle today.
And it is. And I've embraced, I mean, personally, and I'd like to hear from you, I've embraced trying to figure it out and find that comfort area. I don't know, you know, how you guys are with the learning more about the EV experience.
Yeah, I would say it depends on the car. And I have gotten a little bit better about the range anxiety. And like, you really have to be conscientious about how far you're planning to go, what the weather is like, where the chargers are. Because when you're just driving a nice vehicle, you're like, oh, there's gas stations everywhere, so I don't have to worry about that. But it really takes a lot more planning. And some cars do have like route planning, like EV route planning, to help you figure out where the best chargers are to stop at for fast charging. But that's still something that you have to consciously think about.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it just adds in this kind of like extra, like, oh, okay, we got to stop. Right. Which you're not planning. If you're on a trip on the highway, it's one thing. Oh, rest stop, blah, blah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I didn't really have any, I didn't ever take it on a long trip. The mountain biking was local. And I will say, though, with the mountain biking, I did notice that it has an unusually high load floor. And so it really, like, higher than your average, you know, a minivan for sure, and SUVs. Just the height that I had to lift my mountain bike up to get it inside was a little bit awkward. But as far as the driving, you know, that I did with all my evaluations and everything, I mean, it actually, that's where it shines. I mean, it's a nice driving vehicle. It does dynamically, it does most things well, in terms of just, it has decent power. Although I will say, it's a little abrupt almost off the line, which, did you notice that?
Yes.
Some mild abruptness, which we don't see with EVs because they're typically so smooth.
Yeah.
So it's a little odd that there was that. But once you get going, it has really good zip.
It does.
And even, you know, we see some EVs that aren't super high powered, that they run out of steam a little bit, say if you're on a 2-lane road and you're trying to pass around a slower vehicle. And this one still has enough that you can feel confident pulling out to get around a vehicle.
Yeah.
I feel like you want to say something.
Oh, well, I'm just agreeing with everything you're saying, because it's just like such a large vehicle. I wouldn't expect it, like if it were a nice vehicle, to have that much oomph when you hit the accelerator. But like, yeah, it just has like power and reserve for you to just zip along.
Yeah, and
surprising.
And you know, it handles pretty well. I'd say better than your average minivan. It helps that, you know, they can do things with an EV in terms of where they put the battery, that kind of stuff. And ride is pretty decent. There's a little bit of sort of bounciness to it, like it does this front to rear pitching. You know what I'm talking? Yeah, and so that's I wouldn't say it's rides uncomfortably. It's definitely firm, but there's a little something going on with the suspension. Maybe it's the wheelbase. I'm not sure what it is that allows it to do this front to rear pitching or porpoising. It gets a little annoying, but certainly nothing. Those wouldn't be any reasons why I wouldn't buy the vehicle. But two things as far as the driving that are a little weird. One is that it doesn't have a full one pedal driving mode, right? Yep. And it doesn't even make it easy to really adjust the regenerative braking. Basically, you put it into the gear selector into its B mode, and that gives you pretty strong regen braking.
Right.
Which I actually used it most of the time, but you can't come to a full stop with it like that, right? Unlike a lot of BBs. But I actually use that a lot because the brakes are terrible.
The brakes are so
right.
bad.
Do you want to talk about that?
So I was gonna say, you know, Maddie, give us some. You noted the brakes in particular. You know, in one thing.
Yeah, I was kind of like trying to figure out the best way to come to a really smooth stop, because like that is my goal in every car. So I want to be like the smoothest stop ever. But in this car, if I stopped like too hard, I guess if I tried to stop slowly, it was really hard to like modulate the brake pedal to just be like a nice smooth stop, and then the brakes would squeal, which might just be an issue with ours. But like it just added to the challenge of like I have to have this right balance of pressure on the brake pedal where it's not coming to a slam,
right,
like hard stop, and then like not getting it to squeal on the brakes. And also the normal regenerative braking that happens. So it was just really hard to balance that.
I think it's the definition of nonlinearity, which maybe not everyone knows what that word means, but basically
can you explain what nonlinearity is?
It basically means, so when you step on a brake pedal, you want to feel that almost as soon as you step on it, you know, you start feeling some stopping power, and that you don't feel like you have to adjust your pedal, your pressure, your foot pressure on the pedal to come to a stop exactly where you intend. The problem with this one is you step on it, and initially it doesn't feel like it's doing anything. You press a little further in, it still doesn't feel like it's stopping the vehicle too much. Then as you get a little further in, then the regenerative braking starts kicking on, so now it's suddenly ramping the braking harder. And then even if you were able to compensate all that without a big deal, right before you get to a stop, it tends to clamp down really hard. And so it's like you said, Maddie, it's almost impossible to be super smooth with this vehicle.
It's a weird transition with the regenerative braking, the friction braking engagement, and it has I felt it had a softness to the pedal. So just like a mushy brake pedal to begin with, it gave me a couple panic stops, not in the sense of the like, whoa, I was playing with the infotainment screen, I had a panic stop. It was, I'm coming to a normal stop that I'm used to. You put your foot down when you're used to stopping because you just muscle memory, and all of a sudden it was like, ooh, and then it jolts.
Right.
So it's strange. We'll definitely look at it in our testing, and see what happens. But it felt like bad old early hybrid brakes almost.
Yep.
So Maddie, can you give us some of your feelings on infotainment, the UX, and as well as the safety systems? Because you're pretty detailed in what we've got.
Sure,
you got to tell us the buckle. I assume you have a lot to say about the controls.
Well, there's a lot going on with
the
new Volkswagen control system that keeps rolling on each vehicle.
Yes. So what we have is a standard 12.9-inch screen, and they put almost everything into the screen. So that includes your media, and it also includes your climate control. And the only thing that isn't technically in the touchscreen is they have a touch slider to control both your temperature and your volume, which can be very difficult to do while you're driving. But the funny thing is that those sliders in previous versions used to not light up at night.
Right.
And so you would just kind of be fumbling in the dark. But now they lit them up, which is great, but it's just a little step forward. And they have, I think, a lot more to go to get a very usable system. But what we're looking at is, so we have this large screen, and it's very colorful, has really bright icons, and it has customizable widgets. So while it can be really difficult to kind of navigate through while you're driving, at least you can customize it to be a little bit better for you.
Right.
So you can arrange the widgets where you want and choose if you want navigation or if you want your favorites or climate control, like heated seats. So it's like they're trying to help you because they kind of maybe know that it's not the easiest to use.
Right.
But it doesn't make it better or
Right.
that much better.
It's like it starts off bad. They're like, but you can make it better if you don't want it to be bad.
Yeah. So like also they have kind of like smart climate control. So if you're like, oh, my hands are really cold, you can go into the menu in the climate menu and tap like warm hands, and then it will direct all the vents and close the certain vents and, you know, make it hotter, turn up the heat. So there's like a little bit of help there.
Sure.
But once again, this doesn't mean that it's going to be an easy system to use. They're just making it a little bit less difficult.
And like just the steering wheel controls, right? The sliding and stuff. I mean, talk to us a little bit about, like, for me, I find that, you know, the trying to scroll with your thumb is inconsistent, right? So you have to press really hard if you want to just do it one by one, right? So none of it's natural. So you either scroll and maybe it changes the volume, maybe it doesn't, or you have to press unusually hard if you just want to do it one click at a time. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but for me, a couple times when I was driving it, a couple different drives, the volume controls just got locked into place. And and I couldn't, like, no matter what I did with the steering wheel controls or on the screen, my volume was set until I turned it off and then restarted. That happened on 2 different occasions.
Wow.
And maybe, again, some of this is an early vehicle, blah, blah, blah. Also, the where you have the phone, it's kind of an interesting where they have the rechargeable, the wireless charging pad, right?
Yeah.
And I had some issues with that. It told me a lot. Again, I don't think it's my phone because I use the same phone on all of our test cars. Every once in a while, mid-drive, it would just say that the system isn't working anymore, the wireless charging.
That happened to me too.
And the problem is a pop-up comes up on the screen and it doesn't go away. You have to dismiss it, right? And so then you're like, oh, I must have it in there wrong. So then you go to try to kind of fiddle with it. And what do? You hit the gear selector from drive into B.
Okay.
Or at least I did.
Yeah.
So there's just some real annoyances with this vehicle. And we haven't even talked about getting in and out of it, which I think we probably should talk about.
Well, we will. I mean, just because you brought up the phone position, I found it at an odd position to place it.
Yeah.
In that, I forgot it a few times because it's hidden.
Yeah,
But
so
also,
it's like the steering wheel, and then you have the dash, and then it's kind of just like this cubby, this dark cubby, and you just slide your phone into it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's behind your hand, you know, where in the steering wheel. But it also, to me, it almost encourages you to take it out because it's right at your hand.
It's right there.
I mean, it's bad enough.
What do you mean take it out and use it?
Just use it in a sense of distraction. In that it's, you know, when it's here on your center console or somewhere, like, okay, it's within a reach. Here, it's almost just within a grab right off the steering wheel. So it's just an odd position. It's usable space, smart use of space, but it was odd. And yeah, I found, however, with a lot of different wireless chargers, just the shifting of the phone, the case you have, you know, it all depends. It's an inexact science. A lot of times I'm just taking the phone out of the case on long trips and putting it on the pad because the connection's better. The GM vehicles, I've had that recently. But yeah, so Mike, you were talking about, let's get into the ingress egress because for the driver and front seat passenger, it definitely has a unique thing. It's kind of cool, but it's a big problem.
Yeah, it's a little hard to explain. And it's, you know, when you get in on the driver's side, there's a step to get in, but it's really close to the height of the floor. So you're kind of like in between, well, should I just step on and in or should I use the step? But there's also not a grab handle and you really need a grab handle. So it's just incredibly awkward to get in and maybe even more awkward to get back out because as you're like, well, should I use, actually even getting in, I still don't know which foot I should step with. Should I use my left foot? Should I use my right foot? And it's confusing. Same thing when I get back out, should I just put both feet on this step and then jump off?
We could get those dance steps and put them down there.
I need something. I mean, I heard a couple of the guys talking about that they actually like almost fell out of the car.
No, one of them did.
Yeah.
We won't say who, but one of them definitely did. And he's here today.
And
it's not me.
And so there's just some real awkwardness there. I mean, a grab handle would have helped immensely.
Yeah.
Sure. But also once you're in, the driving position is, well, basically so the annoyance of getting in and out, annoying, but also there's an outer armrest on the driver's seat that goes up and down. And it's very adjustable, which is great. But you have to move that armrest every time you get out of the vehicle, right? You can't get around it. And the reason why they have it is because the one on the door is way up here. Now, it's actually a nice secondary spot. A lot of people like to use the windowsill, which is why we kind of like them to be padded, as like on a long trip, just, change your position.
Yep. And
it's great for that, but it can't be the only armrest. So they have this adjustable one. The one benefit is it always goes back to whatever last position you had it at, right? When you lift it up to get out, and then when you get back in, it'll go back to the position you had it at. So at least you don't have to reset it each time. But every time you get out, you're going to have to move that armrest. Every time you get in, you're going to have to move that armrest. And it's just kind of silly and annoying.
It is an odd potential wear and tear. And maybe, again, you get muscle memory when you own it and you use it every day, but it seems like something that will be damaged.
Or almost
just
like they forgot about it. And they're like,
against,
whoops, this one that we have on the door doesn't work too well. Maybe we should put another one in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Maddie, you were going to say something on that.
Oh, just thinking that it could be something that someone gets used to, or it could just be something that grates at you every single time you hop into the car. Because there are some things that you're just like, it just takes away from the experience. And it's so small, but it can have an impact.
One thing that we've seen in a number of the Volkswagens, we were talking about the controls, the toggles on the window controls, on the armrest, on the door, basically, where Volkswagen has eliminated having multiple buttons, and instead they use a toggle, so the same buttons could be used front and rear. And such. Maddie, why don't you, if you can give us some feedback on that?
Yeah. So it's like you said, the toggle switches between front and rear, and it's touch capacitive, so there's no physical button that you're pressing down. And so when you're adjusting anything, or maybe even just resting your hand, it is really easy to accidentally switch it to the rear or vice versa.
Yeah.
And then you're expecting it to act one way, and then suddenly you're rolling down the back window instead of your front window, and it's just overwhelming. So yeah, it just lends itself to a little bit more usability problems than if you just have separate physical controls.
Yeah, and just the annoyance of that, if you want to do the rear windows and it's on the front windows, you have to change something just to press one of the rear windows.
Yeah, it's another step.
You're just not used to that.
It is. It's some of those types of things. Like, I get it in the economy of the space,
right,
economy of the production of the buttons, etc. But it's not something that you necessarily can do by touch,
right,
without looking. And again, maybe after 10,000 miles, you can trust yourself to remember that, okay, I have the front windows activated, so I'll just lower it. That's the weird thing. It's not necessarily, maybe it's a huge cost savings, but I don't know if it's solving a problem out there, that there's bigger problems to be solved.
Right. Can I mention something? Because I feel like you're maybe being a little negative, and I do want to mention some positive things.
Well, that's where we were going to go.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Well, so I relate back to the driving position. One of the things that is one of my pet peeves is a center console that intrudes on your right knee. No issues with that here, which is great. We're seeing a lot of cars these days where it's more like it truly is a panel now in front of the driver's instrument screen, instead of being more like this binnacle over this like little thing.
Right.
And so the problem is they're making them wide, and so you're getting the steering wheel's blocking the upper parts, critical information. I didn't have any of that issue here, partly because it moves. The instrument screen moves with the steering wheel, right? So that part they got really well. There's lots of headroom. The left footrest or dead pedal is nice and wide and well placed. So there are some really good things about the driving position. I will say one oddity. You sort of mentioned this. You feel like you're driving a bus. It has one of these long dashes, which is just an odd sensation. Again, you'll get used to it.
I liked it.
You liked it?
I thought it was fun. Yeah.
Because you want to be a bus driver.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in another life I am.
And then I would also say that the front seats, are great for me. I don't know how they worked for you guys, but I thought and that's super important, that the driver, that's the person who's going to be in there more than anybody else. I thought they were really comfortable and worked really well.
I think a lot with this vehicle is that if you just look at it as what it is, okay, negative, the range. Yeah. Range definitely could be better, particularly for something so big, and would carry a lot. If you take the price out of the equation, a lot of it is really impressive. Like you said, the seats are really good. You have good visibility. The software could be better, certainly with the screen.
Right.
I used a lot of the voice commands with it, and they actually were pretty good, because programming the radio is awful. Volkswagen and Audi to an extent, but Volkswagen's presets and And favorites is a nightmare.
Right.
I know it's not a real nightmare, but it sends shivers down my spine. But if you actually just use voice commands, it did work. At the same time, should that, again, be the workaround for something poor?
Right.
Because I'm not using voice commands when I've got 3 or 4 kids in the back going to lacrosse games and they're talking and there's something's playing on the radio or whatever, and I have to quiet.
Right.
Raise temperature 2 degrees. Yeah, it's silly. The cool thing you touched on the knee room.
Yes.
For your right knee.
Yeah.
Did you guys find the hidden storage in the center console?
Yes, and then I struggled to open it, but I figured it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked the hidden storage. However, I'm going to say a negative here, even though you just said a positive about the center console.
That's okay.
I don't think it's big enough.
Yeah.
Because this is a huge van,
Yes.
right?
It does
There's
lack
so much
small item
space.
storage. Yeah. Yep.
So it's nice to have the hidden feature where people aren't going to find it if maybe they try and break into your car.
Right.
But there's just no place to put a big purse or put snacks for your road trip or something like that, because it's really just an open space and then the hidden compartments underneath.
Yeah.
So I think it could have more space, more storage.
It's a weird hit and miss there. It's like a good attempt, but not fully, because you could disengage it, you could unlatch it and put it in the back, which is kind of cool. We don't need it, but you have kids in the back want to keep with storage while during a trip. Alex Nyzak and I were chatting about it. He made the point of just I would just buy a second one instead of moving it back and forth, because it is an awkward thing to engage, especially if you got stuff in it.
Right.
But yeah, the small item storage, it seems to be a recurring Volkswagen and Audi issue. Of it took decades for them to understand that Americans want cup holders bigger than an espresso cup. There's just not a lot of interior storage.
I would say, but person storage is pretty good.
Yes.
If that's the thing. The second and third rows are really roomy. I could, look, I'm not a huge person, we know that, but I could legitimately sit in the third row.
Yeah.
There's
That's
enough
impressive.
space back there.
Yeah.
And, it's reasonably comfortable. And so I think as far as a people mover from that perspective, it's pretty darn good. Just about everyone's going to be comfortable no matter where they're sitting. And that's very important. You know? So.
Yeah. So let me get to the big final question.
Yeah.
Mike.
Oh,
would you buy it if this was a vehicle for your lifestyle? I know that we sometimes be like, would you buy it? And I'm like, it's a 2-seat sports car. I have a family of 4.
Right.
I would love to, but it doesn't work. So if you needed a van of some sort, would this be something you consider?
No, whether you're considering price or not the price, there's just too many annoyances that I don't want to put up with. The controls and, like I said, the getting in and out up front. The getting in and out of the second and third rows is actually pretty good, so that's not an issue. But for me personally, just too many things I don't want to put up with. That at this point right now, I'd rather just go with a regular minivan. Has a lower floor, and of course minivans are hugely rational, right? I know a fair amount of guys that actually have older guys, but have minivans as their main driver because they they do home projects and sports stuff, and they move stuff around, and the minivans are great for that. But this is not the most useful minivan. And there's just too many daily annoyances I don't want to put up with. If we're falling out of the vehicle, getting out of it, there's something wrong. And just the controls also.
You just need to grow. That's what
I need to grow. The controls are just, I don't want to put up with that. And again, I think I was partially annoyed because I was having these issues with the wireless charger, and I was having these issues with the volume just sticking at the same volume. And again, some of that probably might be some early build issues.
Right.
And so I shouldn't judge that too hard, but we know the controls are a real sore point. And so for me, no. But I could see someone maybe that likes the nostalgia of it, loves the way it looks, and it does drive pretty well if they stayed kind of more local, maybe did shorter, road trips, camping trips or whatever, then I think it could totally work for people if they can swing the price and are okay paying that much for a vehicle like this that, doesn't give you as much as maybe it should for that price.
Maddie, what's your take on it? Would you, if it was, again, I know it's, it's hard to force it,
Yes.
for everyone's needs, but if it was something in consideration.
If it were like half the price and I lived in a small mountain town, yes, because I think it is a fun vehicle and it does have so much space. So if you like to ski or snowboard, you don't have to worry about getting a roof rack or being exposed to the elements. And it's like I said, I like the outside, I like the interior, I like the look of it. But that range really, if they could add 100 miles to that range, that would change my mind a lot.
That would be,
it would sway me. But also, we didn't talk about this yet, but I just wanted to insert a little bit of information about ADAS because I do think that this car has surprisingly good ADAS systems in here. So it comes standard with their IQ Drive, which includes AEB with pedestrian and cyclist detection, blind spot warning, rear cross traffic warning, lane departure warning, lane keeping assistance, lane centering assistance, and adaptive cruise control. So you get quite a lot, which is great. And you can even add on the optional parking assist and a 360-degree overview cameras, which might be really nice because it is a large vehicle. And we haven't done our official testing yet, but just taking it on the roads and taking it, around town, I found that it has pretty good lane centering assistance, actually, and adaptive cruise control. And I had it in some stop and go traffic, and it actually was really smooth. I wouldn't want to use a lot of adaptive cruise control systems in traffic jams, but I would use this one because it felt more natural, like how I would want to drive, as opposed to like waiting too long to accelerate, stepping on the gas or accelerator, and then like slamming on the brakes, because that happens quite often with these vehicles.
Sure, it lags, and then all of a sudden it gets up on the car when it stops in front of you.
But this was actually quite natural. Very good acceleration, as we talked about. And then the lane centering is very good at keeping the ID.Buzz centered in the lane.
Instead of like ping-pong.
Yeah, and for being a large vehicle too, and so wide as well, I felt really good in it. And what's interesting about Volkswagen is with their lane centering, it's kind of unique. Instead of just choosing the center for you, which it can do, if you kind of just nudge it over to the left or to the right and hold it there, you have now given a new center to follow. So if you're like on a 2-lane highway and you don't like being close to the center yellow line, you can just kind of hover on the right side and you've established a new center to the lane.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And if you let go of the steering wheel, not that I'm saying people should, but if they did, would it move back to the center or would it hold that?
It would hold it there because, that's your new center.
Okay.
And you can bring it back with a little bit of resistance and it kind of resets.
Right.
But it's an interesting feature that I don't think maybe many people know about.
No,
I just discovered this recently.
Yeah.
So, I thought it was very interesting. I want to share that.
That's interesting. That is interesting. It's something I have to...
Yeah, try it out.
Yeah.
See if you can get it to work.
Through testing.
Yeah.
Well, we have a first drive on it from the version that we rented from Volkswagen, but the Buzz is in testing now, and we should have final results on consumerreports.org sometime in the near future, depending on how the winter weather goes and lets us get out there. So this is the part of the episode where we answer audience questions. As always, we like your video questions, your text questions. Go to cr.org/talkingcars and submit your question to us. And if we use your question on the show, you will get a Consumer Reports Auto Test Center t-shirt. So be the envy of your friend group and submit questions early and often. The first question comes from Morgan, who says, we own a 2023 Mitsubishi Outlander SE, which we chose for 2 reasons: value for money and the location of the dealer. We found the Mitsubishi dealer had great service, but the dealer had to close, and that makes us a little angry because now we have to rely on our local mechanics. So can you give us hints on what is safe to rely on local shops for? I think oil changes, antifreeze, etc. could be done anywhere, but a brake job or such, maybe not. Any help you can give would be appreciated. So we're going to jump to Monty first because he did some research, which is...
shocking that I would have done some research.
I was going to say helpful.
Basically, all I did was talk to our chief mechanic, Big John. And for most repairs, you absolutely go to a local mechanic because typically the labor rates are going to be a little cheaper.
Yep.
So you really want to find a good local mechanic, maybe use some Google reviews, word of mouth, talk to people, form this relationship with this mechanic. And you almost kind of want a mechanic that's going to do less work for you than, basically a good mechanic will think that replacing something that isn't ready to be replaced yet is wasteful, right? And so you form this relationship, and absolutely brake jobs, 100% you can go to a local mechanic. There's no reason to go to the dealer for those kinds of things. There are certain things that you're going to want to still go to a dealer for, like recalls, software updates, those kinds of things. There are still some of those that maybe your local mechanic can't handle. But again, a good local mechanic will tell you when this is, you really should go to the dealer for this. And it's a bummer for Morgan that they're going to have to, drive kind of far away. But you want to form that relationship, and hopefully this mechanic is going to always steer you in the right direction and do the least amount of work, but also keeping an eye on, okay, I see this is happening. We're going to want to keep an eye on that. Maybe the next, 30,000 miles, we're going to do that. But right now you're okay to go. That's what you want in a mechanic, not someone that's trying to say, oh, you should do this, and your tires are looking a little worn and blah, blah, blah. We have a lot of stories about this on consumerreports.org. There's one that's car owners favor independent repair shops. That was based on some survey stuff that we did, meaning people typically do actually prefer to go to a local mechanic than the dealer. A lot of people just go to the dealer because that's where they bought the car. But there's so many things even related to that. You don't have to go to the dealer that you bought the car from. Right? You can go to a different dealer of the same make. Yep. But you also don't have to, federal law says you don't have to go to a dealership to have, maintenance done. It's not going to void your warranty if you just, obviously if it's, something where the dealer, like I said, the recall, those kinds of things, you want to go to the dealer for that.
Right.
But for a lot of these things, just you can go to a local mechanic.
Yep. It's that's the experience that I had with my wife's MDX, and even the car we replaced it with, is that we use a guy in town, and we've had timing belt. We've done the whole water pump timing belt stuff. We've done valve lash. We have done differential service. I mean, they do a lot of Honda Acura stuff, but they do anything, and it's just a matter of, it's a word of mouth, and it's that, and doing small things and trusting them along the way was when I knew it came time to do that 90,000 mile type service. I was comfortable going there versus the dealer.
Right. The one caveat is that if it's a warranty issue, like if your car is still under warranty and something, there's something defective, absolutely you're going to have to go to a dealer. Not necessarily, not the dealer you bought it from, but you're going to have to go to a Mitsubishi dealer or something to have that done, because obviously a repair shop doesn't have to honor that part of the warranty.
Yeah, because they're not going to be able to bill back to the manufacturer. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So question then.
Yeah.
So they have a Mitsubishi. Could they theoretically go to like Nissan?
I talked to Big John about that, and that's a great point, Maddie, because basically the Outlander is very similar to a Nissan Rogue. And he told me that there's really not a huge benefit to doing that.
Over going to a local mechanic?
He said that, you should still go to the local mechanic, and that it's not like if you bring your Mitsubishi to a Nissan dealer, it's not like they're going to, all those parts are going to, massively be the same between those two vehicles. They're still going to have to get the parts from Mitsubishi. So I don't know that could be a workaround, but you definitely would want to reach out and to that Nissan dealer and find out if they're going to be able to help you with that. And of course, we don't know how close one is, but if one is closer, that is a possibility. You could potentially start going to the Nissan dealer and just see how that goes. But again, for most things, if it's not warranty, just find that local mechanic and just save yourself a long drive and probably some money.
Yeah. Well, Morgan, I hope that Mike's information helped you out, and definitely send us a note and let us know what goes on, where you end up taking your Mitsubishi. And if you happen to have a Nissan dealer and you go by there, let us know how it works. Because, to your point, there's a VW dealer in my town, and they have an ad out there like, oh, we can work on Audis too. Yes, it's the same corporate parent. It's a little different structure, but similar vehicles, they will do work for that other brand.
And if that makes Morgan feel more comfortable, then absolutely, by going to an actual dealer, even though you should feel comfortable going to a mechanic, but if they feel more comfortable going to the Nissan dealership, and the Nissan is like, bring the Outlander on in, well, no issues whatsoever.
Yeah, maybe basic powertrain stuff versus the Mitsubishi specific parts.
Yep.
So our second question is from Matt from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, who says, I currently have a 2000 Honda Valkyrie. This is a great motorcycle for road trips and camping. What would make it even better is if my partner, dog, and gear could all come along. I'm looking for a rock-solid, under $10,000 convertible to replace my Valkyrie. I'm thinking Toyota Solara, Volkswagen EOS, early 2000s Ford Mustang, but I'm open to anything. bonus points given for manual transmissions, ability to tow 1,500 pounds, and common enough to have easy access to parts and instructions when something needs fixing. So I'm going to jump the order and go to Maddie first on this one.
Okay.
What are your ideas?
So when I was reading this, I was like, oh, wow, that seems like they're asking for something that I don't know exists, but we're definitely going to try to get as close as possible to what
we've done.
want. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I talked to a lot of different people, asked them for what they think about each of the cars that Matt's looking at. And based on reliability, so Stephen Ellick is our statistician wizard. He was looking at the data and he said that the Camry Solar is probably his best bet. Yeah. It can tow technically about 2,000 pounds, but it's not recommended, but technically you can. However, Matt would likely not be getting a manual for the Solara unless he did something from the 99, the second gen of the Solara. Right, so that was going to come with its own mechanical issues. But the reliability is pretty average in comparison to like the Ford Mustang around the same year. The Mustang, you can get a manual, and it does have a little bit lower reliability but you can, if you get a more recent model, that reliability does go up on the Mustang. And you can tow with the Mustang as well. But some common issues that we're seeing for the Solara, so things that he might have to repair himself, could be power steering leaks, oil leaks, steering linkage, emission control devices, the catalytic converter. So there's a whole laundry list of things. But they are things that you can find like manuals on how to repair it yourself. Right. So I would say it's probably his best bet. Someone did recommend the Jeep Wrangler for better or for worse, because you're going to have a fun time in that car, but you're not going to have a the fun time repairing it because
it
the
doesn't drive great either,
yeah.
But you're going from a motorcycle, so you're not, you know what I mean? Like you're already out in the wind and everything, so it's not like, you know what I mean? Like a Jeep and...
you're saying the leaking in the air and getting wet. You're just down a motorcycle.
The whole wind buffeting and everything, how noisy a Jeep Wrangler is and all that. So
they do hold their value. Incredible. Like, you end up getting an older one than you would think.
Just people love driving them.
They do.
You know?
They do.
So.
Okay, so Mike, what's your thought?
Matt should get a sidecar. That solves everything, right? The partner goes on the back. The dog goes in the sidecar. You get the little like leather or whatever helmet with the goggles for the dog. And it's going to look awesome.
Yes.
So that is one option.
What about
sort
their
of joking option?
What about their stuff?
That I didn't solve, except so what I thought. So first of all, if you don't know what a Valkyrie is, it's this. It's kind of like a cruiser, and it's almost like a car engine with a motorcycle wrapped around it. It's a 1.5 liter horizontally opposed 6-cylinder, right? A 6-cylinder.
That's
big, okay. With the cylinders going this way,
nice.
Right? So it's kind of a neat motorcycle. But so what I would say is go with something like an Infiniti G37 convertible, like 2009, 2013 range. 325 horsepower, 3.7 liter V6. You can get it with a 6-speed manual transmission. It's probably going to be a little bit hard to find. You can get them for around $10,000, and reliability, according to our data, is about average. So I think that, then you've got some space. You can put the dog in the back. You have a reasonably fun little car, reasonably reliable, and you got the manual transmission. I think the one thing is I don't believe it's recommended to tow with it. So that's the one issue that I didn't solve. Sorry.
You did your best.
You can't do everything.
No, you can't. No. So I remembered what my thought was, and it's the Nissan Murano Cross Cabriolet.
Oh my God. No. That's one of the ugliest vehicles. It's not Pontiac Aztec levels, but it's pretty goofy looking.
He didn't put looks on this list.
Oh, that's true. Fair point. Okay.
Yeah. Just like looks aren't part of the qualifications to be on this panel. No, you and me, it's weird.
The Murano. Cross Cabriolet.
Cross Cabriolet. It's another answer to a question that nobody asked.
It's actually not a bad. That's not a bad idea.
It could fit stuff. Yep. It's not supposed to tow, but the Murano itself could tow 1,500 pounds. Yeah. Maybe you put a U-Haul, a hitch on it. You look the other way. It could hold stuff. It's
unique.
It's unique.
You won't see yourself coming the other way.
You could find them for $10,000. You know, in the $10,000, you can find high mileage ones. I'm shocked that there's high mileage ones. That's the one thing. I thought I would find a bunch of these on Auto Trader or something. They're in like 40, 50,000. No, 120, 130, 140,000 mile versions. You know, there is a Range Rover Evoque convertible. That though, I think reliability wise, I wouldn't suggest to anyone either. But again, another weird SUV convertible. I would in reality also just say get a small pickup truck that has a back window you can slide. You know, find something, you know, in the early 2000s or mid 2009, somewhere in there. Small pickup truck, because that's just gonna
with an extra cab for sure.
With an extra cab,
we're not putting the dog in the bed.
No, we don't. No, not at all. There's no pets rolling around the back of the bed. You know, it's got your
seatbelt.
It's just that's an episode of awfulness. You can have wind. You can have.
Oh yeah, you
shelter.
don't have the convertible part.
You don't have the convertible part, but if you have the back window slide, at least you know you're getting a flow through. The dog could hang its head out the back or out the side. You could hold yourself. You could even tow.
Yeah.
It hits like everything except, and I think that's the one thing is like we've hit, Maddie, you hit everything. It's hard to hit all of these things, and it does say I'm open to anything, bonus with this and that. So in the pickup trucks, lots of parts availability.
I'll sell you a nice 2000 Toyota Tacoma.
All right, so
Mine.
Matt,
I'm kidding. I'm not going to sell.
Trader Monty's got his Tacoma on the lot.
No.
So I don't know, Matt. Just like we were saying, let us know what you go with. It would be interesting. The Mustang, I think, is a possibility.
I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be. But the Cross Cabriolet, though,
Unique.
you're going to get all the looks.
Yeah.
Good or bad. So that's it for this episode. As always, go to consumerreports.org/talkingcars to send us your questions, text, video, anything. Send us questions. If we answer on air, we'll give you that sporty t-shirt. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.